with the rate at which the automotive industry is advancing and all of the technology is changing our vehicles and mobility solutions every day, it's so important for auto manufacturers to be able to have a direct connection with policymakers so that we can make sure that all of those things are advancing in harmony together and making really wonderful experiences for the communities that we live in and for people who are driving in our communities. I'm so excited today that we have access to such an important voice in a market that really is leading what is happening in mobility and transportation in the entire U.S. So please give a warm welcome to California Secretary of Transportation, Toks Omishakin. So we're going to start this conversation today. LA Auto Show actually reached out and asked the community if they had any questions that they wanted to pose to you. If you're in the audience, don't worry. If you have a burning question that you want to ask, we're going to turn some mics on in a couple of minutes. But we're going to start with some of the questions that were submitted for Toks. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Juliet. Yeah.
All right, our first question. Given California's ambitious climate targets and your leadership in expanding transportation electrification, how do you see the evolving balance between reducing the carbon intensity of the EV supply chain while sustaining healthy profit margins for manufacturers?
Thank you, Juliet. An important question to start off with, but I want to start off by thanking you
Of course.
for being a part of this, getting serious to be a part of this important conversation and event. And also, shout out to the LA Auto Show for reaching out to us on the policy side of government and engaging with us as well. Sometimes events like this can be very much industry-led and industry-driven and not a lot of engagement with the public sector. So it's pretty cool to reach out to the Newsom administration to say, what's going on from our side of the world, of the auto world as well. So excited to have such an important conversation with the LA Auto Show. And at 118 years old as well, that's a big deal to be around that long and having that much success. But to your question, look, I think it's pretty clear that the data and evidence is there that it is more expensive still to produce an EV for an OEM than it is to produce an ICE vehicle. I think that's still the case. Roughly, it's costing more than 2 to 2.5 times more to produce an EV than it is to produce a zero-emission vehicle. But when you think about the trend lines that we've been on, number one, the cost to produce batteries continues to be headed in the right direction.
Correct. Down.
Continues to get cheaper and cheaper. That's going to continue to drive that 2 to 2.5 times number. It's going to continue to drive it down into the right direction. And it's going to start to improve the revenue for OEMs as they lean into producing ZEVs more. We're trying to do our part from the state government side to make sure that the policies, the incentives continue to be there. And we're, like you mentioned in your lead-in, we're leading the country. We had a record-breaking third quarter in California where 29.1% of vehicles sold in California were zero-emission vehicles. That's a record rate for us. We were roughly at 24 to 25%. So to get up to 29% in the third quarter of this year was a big deal. So I think as we continue to put those supportive policies in place, the incentives in place, you will start to see those sale numbers continue to climb. We're at 2.4 million zero-emission vehicles sold in California today. As those numbers continue to grow, I think we're hoping that OEMs will start to see more and more of their profit margins start to increase over time. And let's not forget, this is very important as well. I know the vehicle production business is a business.
It is, yes.
But for OEMs, keep in mind what you're doing to the environment, how you're helping the environment, how you're helping the public's health as well. That part can't be left out. It's critically important for OEMs to keep that in mind, despite the fact that their bottom line is the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, it's so wonderful. You mentioned you're the market leader in both volume and sales, market share of electric vehicles. And I think, you could argue maybe a little bit that public sentiment here, maybe there is a little bit more open-mindedness to sustainable vehicles or to new technology. But I think the policy that you all are putting in place goes hand in hand with helping to drive that adoption up. Wondering if you can talk for our second question a little bit more specifically about policies or specific incentives that CalSTA is exploring to enable manufacturers to do some of that sustainable innovation that you mentioned while maintaining economic viability as the EV market and hybrid market continues to evolve.
Look, there's no doubt from the EV side, and just the automobile sector in general, that the last 4 or 5 years has been a little bit challenging. We're finally getting back pretty close to the numbers of pre-pandemic levels.
Yes.
So that's a really good sign. But from our side, we believe we have to walk the talk and not just put the policies in place and say, okay, this is what we're expecting OEMs to do or the general public to embrace. But we want to be an example as well. One of the things that we recently did, just this year, we put in an order for 600, and I can talk about this now. I try not to be product specific, but we just ordered 600 Rivian trucks. That's the largest order for Caltrans. It's the largest order of electric vehicles of any public sector entity in the country. In one single order. 2 years ago, we ordered 600 Chevy Silverados as well, EV Silverados, to be clear. So we're trying to walk the talk. At Caltrans alone, we have 12,000 vehicles on our fleet. When I started working for the department, we were at roughly 5%, 6% of our entire fleet being ZEV. With this latest Rivian order, we're going to be close to 18%.
That's fantastic.
Of our entire fleet being zero-emission vehicle. A lot of this is due to Governor Newsom's leadership and our state legislature passing laws. But the more the public sees us as the public sector with marked vehicles that are EVs, it's going to continue to encourage people and help the market as well start to see some return as well. But some of the other things that we've been thinking about doing, or that we've been doing, is the charging infrastructure, how important that is. People still talk about in California, with all the charging that we now have 200,000 nozzles in vehicle charging nozzles in California. Compared to gasoline nozzles, we're far outpacing, which is a really good thing, far outpacing the number of gasoline nozzles within our state. So, but we still hear, despite having 200,000 charging ports within the state, we still hear about range anxiety.
Absolutely.
It's still a concern. And we have a goal of making sure that in California, that every single Californian is at least 10 minutes away from a charging port. And so we know we have a long way to go still to continue to invest. Despite the major success we've had, continue to invest in charging infrastructure. We got a $400 million grant from the prior federal administration called NEVI. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with NEVI, the federal program. And so we're hard at work making sure that we get that money dispersed into private partners' hands to get the infrastructure onto our system across the state of California. I think the more we do to incentivize and we put the charging infrastructure there and we continue to turn over our own fleet and be that walking example, I think it's going to continue to help the industry as well.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. I've been following the J.D. Power EV Index for a number of years, so I pay attention, quarterly to what is the consumer sentiment. And the two things that drive consumer adoption of electric vehicles are handling that range anxiety that you're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yep.
giving them the confidence that they can take that vehicle in their everyday life, whether they have a long commute, whether they're running to the store, whether they have kids in the car. That can be a scary thing to think like, oh my goodness, if I get stuck somewhere, what am I going to do with my
Yeah.
kids? How am I going to get them someplace? But giving them that confidence by making those charging stations readily available, and then also walking the talk, having those vehicles out. One of the things that drives EV adoption, in addition to getting over that range anxiety, is physically experiencing the car. EVs are so fun to drive.
Yeah, yeah.
They really are the future of where the industry is going. So if you have not driven an EV, I encourage you to get out there. There's some driving experiences in the exhibit halls, but check them out. Go for a ride, have fun, and support those advancements that are going on in your
Absolutely.
community.
Absolutely.
Okay, question 3. We've got one more question that was submitted ahead of time, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. So we're all familiar with the elimination of federal EV rebates and some of the recent challenges to CARB rules that are placing quite a bit of downward pressure on EV adoption nationally.
Yeah.
How can California Department of Transportation work alone or in partnership with CARB to counteract this, and again, drive toward making EVs more affordable for drivers and again, more profitable for manufacturers so that there's a business model to want to continue making more?
Yeah, look, this is an important question. Look, I'll say that our vision and outlook for continuing to be leaders in this space in California is still going full speed ahead.
Excellent.
We're not backing off. Our long-term visions for what we'd want to do, especially related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions within the state, addressing public health challenges within the state, the investments and policy decisions we're making in this space very much align with that. So we can't achieve those environmental goals and those public health goals that we have in California. We can't achieve them without this industry. They're intricately linked
Yes.
together. But what's happening at the federal level, I can tell you that we vehemently disagree. We don't think the incentives should have been taken away. Those tax credits should have been taken away.
Yep.
So we have to continue to do our part, everything we can within California. And I'll say it's not just the Department of Transportation. It's the California Air Resources Board. It's the California Energy Commission. It's GoBiz, our state business entity. It's the PUC, our public utilities entity in California. All of us working together on incentives, on infrastructure, different policies to continue to lean in. The governor put out an executive order earlier this year because we knew what was going to be coming from the federal government, and essentially said with that executive order, we all need to continue to be working together to continue to lean in this space. So one of the things we came up with as an idea, one of the entities that I have responsibility and oversight for is an organization called the New Motor Vehicle Board.
Okay.
Very small organization, but they have a lot of engagement with dealers. And so one of the things we found out was that through our New Motor Vehicle Board director, that sometimes when people go to dealers, they're not necessarily finding the help that they necessarily need as it relates to EVs.
Sure.
That the expertise, if you will, sometimes is not present on the ground at a dealer to say, hey, ICE vehicle, here's what it does, cool buy, but also check out this EV. Here are the details of, how the mileage, the range that you will get on it, different components of the vehicle. That's really important.
Absolutely.
Part of being able to see sales continue to grow. So our director said, hey, let's come up with a pledge with all the dealers in the state to come up with a way to make sure they have an expert, commit to having an expert on hand. And if you do that, if you commit to having an EV expert on hand within your dealership, you join our list of recognized dealerships that are experts in doing the right thing to support California's efforts to clean the environment, support economic development and economic growth. So there are ideas like that that we're pushing forward. And we also have regular meetings with CARB and all those other partners I mentioned, PUC, CEC, again, to continue to lean in on the governor's executive order
Yep.
and implementing the actions that he's called for. So we're not backing off in any way the commitments that we have to continue to see the EV market, the ZEV market, I should say,
Yes.
the ZEV market in California grow.
Because you have to throw hydrogen fuel cell vehicles in there too. So
Absolutely.
that
It's
was
about
great.
the ZEV market, not just
Not just the EV market.
not just the EV market.
Okay. I commend you on all of that. Everything that you just talked about is why you all will continue to lead
Hope so.
in this space. I heard two things that I think are so wonderful, and that is, we talk a lot in automotive about the purchase funnel. You got to, deal with the awareness stage where people are learning about new opportunities, move them down to the consideration phase, and then actually push them through to a sale. So the fact that you're responding to that market feedback and getting people directly connected to the dealerships where Californians come in and they fall in love with driving the car, but then they have all of these questions and making
Exactly.
sure that there is someone there to answer that. And then I also loved what you said about locking arms and collaborating with all of these different entities to make
Yeah.
sure that you're understanding the full scope of the situation and the full scope of everyone that has to partner together to move these initiatives forward. And I think that that's just refreshing and fantastic in
imperative.
today's day and age. So now, thank you so much. I think it's time that we can open it up for a couple of questions from the audience. So we have a few
Got
mic
one here,
runners.
Julia.
Oh,
Yeah.
one right here in the front.
Yeah.
Oh, to your left.
Hello, Bengt Halverson. I'm a freelance automotive journalist.
Sorry, your name again?
Bengt Halverson.
Okay.
Nice to meet you. Recently, the federal government has forgiven some shops who knowingly violated emissions rules and circumvented them with devices and such. I know this is more of a CARB issue rather than yours, but
Yeah.
what can you do in your office to help reduce the number of vehicles that are working around emissions loopholes, seeing that we worked so hard to get the clean air that we have here today versus the smog of the past?
It's a very good question, and like you mentioned, it's probably a little bit more of a California Air Resources Board question than a DOT transportation question. But I'll give you a little bit of my personal, take. I was in, and I don't like being product specific, but before I took on this responsibility, I was in Tennessee, where I was the number 2 in Tennessee, and there was a company that has a Tennessee presence and also has a California presence that was caught sort of circumventing the standards that have been in place. And there was a big tally against them and a big fine that they had to pay back for many years. And they're still, I think to my knowledge, they probably are done paying back the several millions and millions of dollars they have to pay back. Look, I think the industry is at a place now where there's so much competition, not only here in the United States. There are, in California today, more than 140 models of ZEVs available. There's so much competition. When you go to the Asian market, specifically China, and 90% of the zero-emission vehicles, I'm not sure if you noticed, 90% of them are in China, Europe, and the United States. Those are the biggest markets. And so with the market continuing to expand and grow and competition continuing to increase, I think it's incumbent upon OEMs to be as straightforward and honest and honorable as possible about this technology and what they're doing. Because I think if that circumventing continues to happen, it's going to continue to hurt their particular brand, their particular company. Because that company from several years ago that had to pay those several millions of dollars, it no doubt hurt them. It's beyond the money that they had to pay back. A lot of people were looking at them differently, and it impacted sales as well. So I think beyond the regulatory work that needs to happen with the federal government and organizations like CARB, I think it's incumbent upon the industry to honor the direction that we're going globally as it relates to this technology.
Right here, and then if
we've got one. And
We'll
then
go
you'll
front
next.
row and then to the side.
Okay.
Hi, Sammy Roth, until recently with the LA Times, now independent newsletter writer. Secretary of Omishakin, I wanted to ask about the state's 2035 100% zero emission vehicle sales goal. I know there's the Federal Congressional Review Act action and the litigation having to do with that. But I wanted to ask, sort of independent of that, regardless of the outcome, do you think meeting that goal right now, is that achievable? Is that something that the state can still accomplish?
Very good question. I think the question there was the 25-35 goal that Governor Newsom set in 2020. So we're 5 years in, we're 9 years away from getting to that goal, whether or not I believe it's achievable. I think so, but there's no doubt that we're facing headwinds. And so there's going to continue to be a lot of conversation within the state of California about how we're going to be able to get there. But the headwinds that we're facing, you alluded to, I mean, our waivers got pulled by this federal government. But as I alluded to in my comments, the vision is still the vision. The goal is still the goal. We're full speed ahead. We're not backing off of our commitment to this. We really believe that we can achieve this despite the headwinds. Despite the headwinds, we're still as locked in as ever on the 2035 date. But we'll continue to have those conversations about how to get there because of these recent headwinds that we're facing.
Hi, Matt Wazowski with SAE International. When you talk to your peers in other states that don't have the EV adoption rate that California does, what do you tell them that's worked here, and then what sometimes do you hear from them reasons that they're maybe further behind?
You know, California is such a unique market. I mean, there are more than 35 million registered vehicles in the state. I always tell people that California has more registered vehicles than any other state has human beings. It is a large market, but that also means a big responsibility as far as the infrastructure to support it, the roadways that we're responsible for, and now increasingly the charging infrastructure that we have to continue to build out. Look, I was just in Salt Lake City, Utah, a couple of days ago at a big transportation conference, and I was engaging with another state CEO, transportation public sector CEO, and I was telling him about a nonprofit organization called Veloz. Veloz is a NGO that's working on increasing the penetration of electric vehicles and the charging network across America, based in California, but working across the United States. And I said, hey, and this is a very large state that I won't name, and I said, hey, Veloz is in California, but they're interested in engaging you on ZEV adoption and how the market can continue to grow in your state. And his response was, I'm interested in a conversation, but I can tell you we're not putting any state dollars. The dollars that we're putting into this, they're the dollars that we got from the federal government. NEVI program, CFI program, all those federal grants from the prior administration. And so if I were to have a further conversation, we're going to set him up with this Veloz organization. But if I were to have further conversation with him about it, I think trying to make sure that he understands his governor's goals, his goals as the CEO, how this industry can continue to help it if they make those investments. We're doing this not only because of the marketplace and consumers who like it and are seeing the benefits of it, but it's also helping us achieve the big picture goals that we have in economic activity. At one point in California, during the pandemic, the biggest, most valuable export that we had were zero-emission vehicles during the pandemic. That was the most valuable export. So it's not just, the sort of feel-good, let's make the environment better. There's a return on investment to our state as well. And so helping other states, to your question, helping other state CEOs understand that if you do this, and it ties into your goals as a transportation CEO and your governor, it can help you achieve the goals despite some of the political rhetoric that's out there about, oh no, that's this side of the aisle or this side of the aisle. It's got nothing to do with that. Consumers want this, and it's going to help you achieve your goals as well.
Thank you so much for the great question. It's a perfect place for us to end. Toks, thank you so much for
Thank you,
setting
Julia.
such a wonderful example for the rest of the country on how they can continue to drive ZEV adoption. We thank you so much. This concludes our stage for the current time being. If any of you are hungry right now, there are some fantastic food trucks out to the right. So we'll invite you to a networking lunch, but you'll want to be back by 1 p.m. As we mentioned, dealers are such an incredibly important part of our industry, and we're going to have a spotlight from Lithium Motors at that time. So thank you so much.